Sup guys, Multiplier here. Today what I'm going to do is run you through how to map the output colors on the Midi Fighter with Tractor, because it's a bit tricky and a bit confusing, especially if you have a Midi Fighter 3D. So what I thought I'd do is, since I figured it out now, is run you through how it works. So what do I mean by mapping the output and the colors? So if you notice how, if I just kind of close this down for a sec, I've set up a current mapping where if I kind of press, say, this button here, so now when the track's playing, it's flashing. And then when it's stopped, it's not flashing. Playing, flashing, not playing, not flashing. That's basically mapping a state of Tractor, i.e. in this particular case, the play state or the play pause thing of Decay is mapping to the output of this button here. So the default color is actually set up to be green, so I haven't had to map the default off state to green. But what I have mapped is the on state for play to be green flashing. Pretty cool, and it's a bit fiddly, especially on a 3D. I like to kind of set that up. So let's give you an example. So let's go to an empty bank so it's easier to show you. So what we're going to do for this example is set the on state for this delay on the effects unit 2 to make this button down here kind of flash some sort of color. So let's do exactly that. Right, so we're going to do let's set up a new, to make things simple, let's set up a new device. So now it's less cluttered and less confusing. We have a brand new device. So what we need to do is, for a start, before I get into this, it's worth noting basically the Midi Fighter 3D uses the output color values from the Midi Fighter Spectra. So if you look in the Midi Fighter 3D manual for the output values, you'll find they're wrong. So I can probably show you those. Show you how wrong they are. So Midi Fighter 3D. It loads. Computer load. Right. Cool. So if you look through the Midi Fighter 3D manual and you look through here, for example, at all the different kind of velocity values for all the different colors, they're actually all kinds of wrong. What DJ Tech Tools did is, to make things more consistent for everyone and all their mappings, they mapped the color values from the Spectra. So have a look in the Spectra user manual and then put that on the firmware for the Midi Fighter 3D. So that's really, really worth knowing, because it confused me for ages, and it wasn't until I emailed the guys there themselves that they told me exactly what they did. So yeah, right, let's actually do some mapping. So what we need to do is, first of all, in fact, we don't need to set, we can just turn it on ourselves with the mouse and then just have the output, do the output. So we need to do add out for add output. And then we go to effects unit and then unit on, because we're mapping the unit on state. And then make sure assignment is on unit 2. And then we'll do learn, and then we'll press this button. That way it's found the right note. And then what we'll do is we need to, I'll probably explain exactly how it works. So type of controller will be LED, interaction mode will be output, modifiers, well, you'll use them if you need them. And then here's the key bit, the LED options. So basically what happens is when so we have the controller range, so 0, it's best to leave it as 0 and 1. And that means when it's kind of off, it's in the state 0, and when it's on, it's in the state 1. And then what that does is, when this button is on, it basically, the MIDI note goes to 127 because of the MIDI range is set to 127. If we change this to 100, then when this button's on, it sends a velocity note or velocity information of a number 100 to this guy here. And that's what, when you look in the manual for all the different numbers and the different colors, that's the number there, is the number that it kind of corresponds to. So this number here is the kind of the off state. So you can actually change it from 0. 0 just means that it defaults to the default color on the Midi Fighter. So if you've set up a whole bunch of colors with the Midi Fighter utility, then these only make sense if you leave the MIDI range minimum at 0, because 0 basically just sets it at the default. If we change this to something else, it will actually change the off state to a color. So we did it at, say, 37. See how now the off state is at a color, because it's sending the velocity value 37 to this note when it's off. But yet when it's turned on, by turning on this button up here, it's now sending the velocity information 100, which happens to be this color, to this here. Understand now? So what we can do, if you want to change the color, we would have to look up in the Spectra manual. So if I just search Spectra and then go to colors, let's find a color. So if we wanted to say bright red, we need something in the range of 7 to 12. So let's go to here and change the output to 8, say. That's in between. Oh, it's not working. It's broken already. It's broken already. Why is it not doing that? I'm confused as fuck now. It should. Right, it's not working. Obviously, what is happening? Let's try 13 to 18. Let's see if that made any difference. Yeah, now it's on red. So yeah, sometimes it just fucks up. Don't know why, but yeah. So now I've set the output velocity at 13, which it said in the Midi Fighter manual here. It mapped to, yeah, red, which is what we wanted. Cool. So we'll change the minimum back to 0, so it sets it to the default state when it's off, which, because we haven't set up a color and Midi Fighter utility, just defaults it to off. So let's say, so now when we turn it on, I don't like red, let's change it to 100 again. That was a nice color. Purple, brilliant. So let's say we now want to make this flash like animate in, say, in time with the music or just at some sort of fixed rate. Well, there is a way to do that, but it's a bit fiddly and a bit confusing, and I'm not even sure if it explains it very well. It kind of explains it, but only in the Spectra manual, not in the Midi Fighter 3D manual. So what you want to do is you add in another output. So you still have to say, if we want this to flash purple, first of all, set it up so it's purple when it's on, and then we add another output. So same again, effects unit on, change it to unit 2. Learn the button, and then what we do this time is, see how it says channel 3 note D sharp 6? Then what we need to do is change that to the same note but on channel 4. Bit weird, but yeah. So channel 4 note D sharp 6. And then what we can do is changing this output value. So you can look it up. So for example, gate velocity. So I know 39 happens to flash every kind of 1/8 interval of a beat. So we change the value to 39. Did that work? Oh, it's broken. It's broken. What's going on? 39. I think 39 should do it. There you go. So yeah, now we've got it set to 39, which is kind of flashing. Yeah, I think it's a 1/8 interval. Now when we turn this on, it flashes at a 1/8 interval. And if we change the value down here to say 40, flashes faster. If we change it to 38, flashes slower. So this value you choose down here determines what animation speed or what animation style it kind of does its animating at. It's a bit weird and confusing, the fact you have to map kind of 2 outs to do kind of some sort of weird animation with a color, but it kind of makes sense. Otherwise, do some basic combinatorics and do some basic calculations, and you realize there'd be too many color options with too many animation options to do it all on one output with 127 intervals. Whatever, you didn't need to know that. So that's pretty much it for animating outputs. Now you know enough of the weird shit to do it in your mapping. So then multiplier, it's been a 10-minute video. Boom, complete.